He placed the bag inside the wardrobe, and at midnight he opened it. The snake slithered out, as Tari explained, and transformed into a very beautiful woman. Chuka slept with the woman, which was the snake, and she went back into the bag after Chuka was done, just as Tari showed him. Once upon a time, in the fabulous city of Ed, there lived a very wealthy businessman called Mazi Obi, who had a very successful enterprise with branches and outlets all over the country. However, Mazi had two sons who were twins and were birthed on the same day. His wife Ife died while giving birth to the twins, so Mazi loved and cherished them. So much. The name of the first son was Teo, while he named the second son Chuka. The two sons grew up to be very intelligent and smart, but their personalities were the complete opposite of each other. Teo was very kind and compassionate. He cared about the poor and rendered assistance whenever he could. Many people loved and admired Teo, but Chuka, his brother, was very rude and uncompassionate. He disliked the poor and looked down on them. Teo felt privileged to have so much, and so he always assisted the poor, but Chuka believed that only lazy people were poor. Mazi observed that Teo was very passionate and everyone loved him, so he wanted Teo to be the successor of his company. But Chuka was the elder twin, and by right, he was expected to take over the company when Mazi retired. This issue gave Mazi a lot of sleepless nights, but after thinking for a long time, he decided to create a competition between Teo and Chuka, and whoever won the competition would be the rightful heir to his empire. One day, he called both his sons for a very, very important meeting. In the meeting, his two sons and his lawyers were present. You have both grown to be very smart and intelligent, and I am so proud of both of you. But as you know, I would be retiring soon, and one of you is expected to take over my empire. The question is, who would that be? Immediately, Chuka smiled at his father's question and interrupted him abruptly, without waiting for his father to finish. I believe we all know the answer to this question. I am the first son, and by right, I am the true heir to your empire. Really? His father asked. You're only 5 minutes older than your younger brother. If the heir to my empire is decided based on age, you both should have equal ownership. What do you mean? Am I not your first son? You are both my sons, and I love you both equally, his father replied. I feel it wouldn't be fair for anyone to inherit my empire based on age. I want you to show me that you are capable. Then what do you propose? Chuka said. A very good question. Since you are both single and yet to be married, a popular quote says that behind every successful man, there is a woman. Are you trying to say we have to get married first? Yes. Any one of you who gets married first would be the rightful heir to my empire. Chuka laughed heartily at his father's proposal. He felt it was a very easy task. That is not a problem. I will bring you a wife before the end of the week, he boasted. Meanwhile, Teo just sat down and listened attentively to all their father was saying. Tayo, don't you have anything to say? Mazi asked. Teo smiled at his father's question and replied, You are a very wise man. If your empire is the prize, I'm very sure the task wouldn't be this easy. I am eagerly waiting for the terms and conditions. Mazi smiled at Tayo's words and applauded his intelligence. Then he gestured to his lawyer to give each of them a document. From now henceforth, you both no longer have access to your father's wealth. A stipulated amount of money will be given to each of you. It will be enough to rent a house and feed you for 3 months. Mazzy continued. You have 1 year to bring home a woman who genuinely and truly loves you, even as a commoner. You have enough money to feed you for 3 months, and in 3 months, you should be able to get a job that should sustain you for the whole year. Tayo smiled at his father's words. He quietly signed the documents and promised his father that he would not disappoint. Then he stood up and left the room. But Chuka, on the other hand, was sitting with rage. How do you expect me to find a wife in less than a year with peanuts? What kind of house can this money afford? Chuka complained. However, Mazi told Chuka that his mind had been made up, and if Teo should return with a responsible bride before him, then Tayo would be the heir to his empire. You have 1 week to vacate my house and go in search of a responsible bride, Maisie told him, and walked away. Teo went inside his room and started thinking of a way to find a virtuous woman who would love him genuinely for his personality and not just for what he has. After contemplating for some hours, Teo decided that he would go to a town very far away from Ed and pretend to be a crippled man. Teo told himself that if any woman could love a crippled man, then she would definitely make a very good wife. So he started thinking of the right town to visit. Meanwhile, Chuka was agitated by his father's words. He was very upset and angry because he hated the poor, and so he couldn't imagine himself living amongst poor people as one of them. Instead of thinking of a way to achieve the goal of getting a virtuous wife, Chuka started thinking of ways to trick his father into giving him the inheritance irrespective of his decision. He went to see his father. He tried to convince his father to change his mind. I am the rightful head to your empire, father. Why are you trying to deny me my birthright? Mazi Obi smiled at his arrogance and pride. My parents died when I was just 10 years old. They left me with absolutely nothing. Your mother and I had to build this empire with our blood and sweat over the years. You should be grateful to be where you are. Are you trying to say we must suffer like you because you suffered? You must learn to be grateful for what you have and what you are given. Bring me a virtuous woman for a wife and inherit my empire. How difficult is that? Maisie Obi was deeply hurt and angry by Chuka's words, and out of anger, he instructed his security not to let any of his sons anywhere near his company or house until after 12 months, which was the duration he gave both of them to find a virtuous. Teo was a very generous man and had helped many people in need, so he had a lot of people he could meet for assistance. He remembered a certain time when he helped a man called David, whom he saw standing on the road with a signpost, begging for a job. So he went to his father's company and met David. He told David that he wanted to understand what being poor felt like, so he was searching for a small village with good people. David laughed at Tayo. He felt he was joking, but when he realized that Tayo was being serious, he told Tayo about a village called Oye, not too far from his hometown. The people of Oya were well known for their benevolence and generosity. I think you would love it there and also learn a lot, David convinced Tayo. Tayo thanked David deeply for his assistance and headed home to pack his things ahead of the journey to Oye village. He went to the market to buy some local clothes and a wheelchair as well. After that, he started his journey to Oye village. He arrived at the village after a few days, found an uncompleted building, and he changed into the local clothes which he had bought. Then he began practicing how to make use of the wheelchair. He practiced for a week until he was able to properly move around with ease. Then he entered the village with the wheelchair, pretending to be crippled. Teo rented a small house, which was secluded from the main village, so no one could monitor him. He divided the money left into two and kept one half for his feeding. The next day, Teo wheeled himself around the markets to be sure that no one could recognize him. But he discovered that the people of Ayaz were quite the opposite of what David had described. Most of them were rude and harsh, only a few villagers were receptive. However, Oye village was filled with many opportunities because their economy was booming. Tayo observed the market for a few weeks and decided to venture into the business of selling vegetables. He observed that there was much profit in the venture, and it wouldn't be too difficult for him since he was posing as a crippled man. Teo would wake up as early as 500 a.m. to visit vegetable farmers and buy vegetables very cheap from them. Then he would go to the market and display his wares. At first, his business wasn't moving too well, but as many people started to know Tayo and how kind-hearted he was, his business started booming. Tayo was making some money, and he started having savings as well. Meanwhile, Chuka, unlike Tayo, went to a very big city called Akko, far from his hometown. Akko was well known for its lavish lifestyle, and only the elite and prominent people lived in Akko City. In less than a month, Chuka squandered all the money which Maisie Obi had shared between him and his brother. He started living in want and penury. He degraded from partying in clubs and lavishing money on women to cleaning toilets and working as a gate man. One day, Chuka couldn't endure it anymore. He told himself that his father was very rich, so why would he be suffering in a random city? However, he knew he couldn't return. He remembered that when he recently arrived at Akko City and was mingling with the elites and millionaires in high places, he heard of a woman called Tari who could transform a male peasant into a billionaire. It was rumored that most of the millionaires in Akko City got their wealth through Tari, but her rules were strict and the price to pay wasn't fair. Many people who got their wealth through her ended up losing their lives or running mad in the space of 3 to 5 years. Chuka thought deep and hard and concluded that he would consult Tari to make him very rich. With the wealth he would get from her, he would marry a beautiful woman and take her home to meet his father, Mazi Obi. The next day, he began his search for Tari. It didn't take him long because she was quite popular and well known for her spiritual powers in Akko City. When he got there, he saw a lot of luxurious cars parked outside. Unlike other witch doctors who lived in huts and demeaning places, Tari lived in a very big and gorgeous mansion. Tari welcomed Chuka warmly and gave him great hospitality. It was as though she knew that Chuka was famished and exhausted. She ordered her maid to serve him with a delicious meal with assorted wine, and after he had finished eating and drinking, Tari led Chuka to a very big room with a king-sized bed and asked him to sleep and rest. While Chuka was sleeping, he had a dream. In his dream, he found himself in a plain white and bright room. He saw Tari sitting on the floor with a calabash in front of her. She gestured to Chuka to sit down opposite her, and then she said to him, "I know you're here for wealth like your peers, but I can see that you come from a rich family. The men who come for my assistance are men with no hope to succeed in life. But you are different. I am on a mission to prove myself worthy, and I can't do that without money. This is why I need your help." Tari: "Oh really? I would advise you to put in the effort to complete your mission without my help. But if you insist on getting my help, I'd have to do your bidding. I insist. Make me rich. Make me wealthy. make me an influential and prominent personality in a queue. I must warn you, there is a price to be paid, rules to be kept, and there are consequences and repercussions if you deviate or err in performing them. I am willing and ready to take on any task as long as I would remain wealthy. Tari laughed at his determination. She dipped her hand into the calabash in front of her, her fingers brushing against the smooth inner surface, and brought out a very big snake. The snake had beautiful scales designed like that of an intricate mosaic, shimmering under the dim light. The snake slithered through her hands and crawled towards Chuka. Chuka was terrified and tried to move, but Tari warned him not to move. With great wealth comes great responsibility and courage. If you cannot confront a male snake, how can you handle great wealth? Tari said, her voice laced with mystery. The snake suddenly stopped and transformed into a very beautiful and alluring lady. Her eyeballs were an unnatural shade of blue, gleaming with an otherworldly glow, and her skin was soft as silk, exuding a faint floral fragrance. The lady went and sat beside Chuka, holding his arms as if they were married. You are lucky. She has accepted you. That is your goddess of wealth. I'll give you a bag with her inside. Each time you sleep with her, she'll fill the bag with money the next morning. Whenever you need money, just open the bag and she will crawl out and transform into a lady. She will return to the bag when you finish sleeping with her. Chuka smiled at Tari's words. He believed the task to be very easy. All I need to do is sleep with such a beauty, and I'll be rich. Why didn't I come to you earlier? Chuka told her. However, there are 3 rules you must keep. Number 1, you must ensure you sleep with her at least twice a week. Number 2, no one must see her except you. What about the 3rd rule? Chuka asked, curiosity sparking in his eyes. I will reveal it to you in due time. Tari's lips curled into an enigmatic smile. The lady transformed back into a snake and crawled into the calabash. Immediately, Tari closed the calabash, sealing its contents with an incantation. Chuka woke up from his sleep, his mind clouded with lingering traces of the surreal encounter. It was already morning, and when he checked the time and date, he realized he had spent 3 weeks at Tari's house already. When he left the room, he saw Tari waiting for him in front of the room. She handed him the same bag which she had shown him in the dream. Then she reminded him not to forget the rules which she had given him. Chuka thanked Tari and took the bag safely back to the small room where he lived. He placed the bag inside the wardrobe, and at midnight he opened it. The snake slithered out as Tari explained, and transformed into a very beautiful woman. Chuka slept with the woman, which was the snake, and she went back into the bag after Chuka was done, just as Tari showed him. The next morning, when Chuka opened the bag, it was filled with money. He couldn't believe his eyes. He was overwhelmed with joy. The first thing he bought was a very big safe, in which he placed the bag that Tari gave him. Chuka started living large. Every night, he would sleep with the snake and be rewarded with money. He became very popular in Aku City, attracting the attention of businessmen and socialites alike. A lot of women wanted him, drawn to his wealth and charisma. He had no trouble finding a wife for himself because of the wealth from Tari. One day, Chuka met a very beautiful lady called Ife, whom he deeply admired and adored. She had an elegant poise, her laughter like the chime of silver bells. He decided to take her home to the city to see his father. He approached Ife and told her that he loved her and that he would like to make her his wife. Ive looked at his expensive outfit and luxurious car, her eyes glinting with admiration. She was impressed by his wealth, and so she accepted to marry him. Chuka took Ive to his house, but when they entered his bedroom, he was shocked to see Tari inside his room already. Ive couldn't see Tari. Chuka quickly left the bedroom and went to the living room, where he met Tari, already waiting for him, her expression unreadable. "What's the matter? Why are you here? I haven't broken any rules so far. You are about to break one of them. The third and the most important rule states that you must not sleep with any other woman except the snake. If I can't sleep with any other woman, how would I have children?" Chuka asked, his voice laced with desperation. "You told me you were determined to pay any price. This is one of the many prices you have to pay. The moment you cheat on the snake, you'd run mad and eventually die." Tari's voice was calm, yet it carried a weight of finality that sent shivers down Chuka's spine. This story teaches a very valuable lesson about greed, arrogance, and the consequences of seeking shortcuts to success. Chuka's impatience and entitlement led him down a dangerous path, one that ultimately cost him everything. Instead of working hard and proving himself like his brother Tayo, he sought an easy way to wealth, ignoring the warnings and the price he would have to pay. His desire for instant riches blinded him to the reality of the deal he made with Tari, and in the end, his greed and recklessness sealed his fate. This serves as a warning to everyone. True success comes from patience, integrity, and hard work. Taking shortcuts, especially those that involve deceit and immoral actions, will always have severe consequences. Always choose the right path, no matter how difficult it may seem. In a town called Lumina, there lived a wealthy merchant called Jaran. He was married to Amira, a poor, homeless but beautiful lady he saw sleeping on the street in her village many years ago. Mira was the first daughter of her mother, who gave birth to 6 other children. Her father had passed away prematurely, leaving the burden of the family on his wife's shoulders. She was just a mega storekeeper, struggling to provide for her large family. Everyone in her family looked up to Mira for survival, which made her situation even more difficult. Jaron had a delivery to make the night he saw her sleeping on the street. His van had broken down during the journey, so he arrived at Knox, which was Mira's village, very late in the night. The village was eerily quiet, and the cold breeze made the night even more unwelcoming. He was shocked when he saw her out in the cold, curled up beside an old wooden bench. He gently woke her up. "Young lady, why are you sleeping outside at this time of the night? Don't you know how dangerous this village can be?" he asked, his voice laced with concern. Mira yawned and stretched her limbs, rubbing her tired eyes. She looked up at Jaren, her face reflecting exhaustion and despair. "I don't have a choice. My mother insisted I sleep with an older man or leave her house," she responded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Your mother? How can she be that cruel?" Jaren asked, his brows furrowing in disbelief. "Life has been hard. I'm willing to do anything to help my family, but I cannot sell my dignity and pride," she said firmly, a flicker of determination shining in her weary eyes. Jaren was moved by her dignified words. He hesitated for a moment, then made a decision. "You can sleep in my van tonight. I promise to take you home in the morning." Jaren looked responsible, so Mira believed him. She followed him into his van and curled up at the back, finally finding a moment of warmth and security. The van smelled of spices and fresh fabric, a sign of Jaren's thriving business. In the morning, Jaren delivered his goods and took Mira back to her house. When they arrived, her mother was seated on a chair outside the house while Mira's younger siblings were sweeping the dusty compound. The little ones looked tired, their clothes worn out and patched in several places. Immediately, the woman saw Mira. She stood up angrily and charged at her. "You stupid and good for nothing child. What are you doing here? Didn't I ask you never to return to this house if you can't do what I asked of you?" She spat, her voice filled with frustration and contempt. Jaren was marveled at her mother's reaction. He found it unbelievable that a mother could be this unreasonable towards her own child. Mira, who was scared of her mother, quickly hid behind Jaren, clutching onto his sleeve. But her mother was relentless. She took a step forward intending to grab Mira, but Jaren stepped in between them and rebuked her. "Enough, a mother should protect her child, not throw her to the wolves. If you don't want her, I will take care of her," Jaren declared firmly before turning away with Mira. When they returned to his van, Mira broke down in tears. "I cannot do what she's asking of me. I cannot sell my body to an old man for money, and I have nowhere to go," she sobbed, wiping her eyes with the back of her hand. "Don't cry anymore. I will help you. My name is Jaren, and I am a merchant. I come from a town called Vespa. Perhaps you could come with me," Jaren suggested with a reassuring smile. Mira's face lit up with hope. She leapt for joy at Jaren's offer, throwing herself into his arms in gratitude. When they got to Vespa, Jaren was well known by all. He would stop his van at every junction to give the less privileged some money. Everyone knew him and appreciated his generosity. When they reached Jaren's house, Mira was awestruck. It was a grand modern mansion that stood out among the other houses. The walls were painted in a soft cream color, with large glass windows reflecting the golden rays of the sun. Jaren noticed her amazement and chuckled. He took her to a nice boutique to get her new clothes and shoes. After that, he took her to a hairstylist to have her hair done and her nails polished. When they were done, Amira looked like a princess, and Jaren was pleased with what he saw. The next day, Jaren went to the market for business and left Mira at home. When Jaren returned from the market in the evening, he was taken aback by what he saw. His house, which had always been somewhat untidy, was now spotless. The furniture gleamed under the light, and a sweet aroma of food wafted from the dining area. When he got to the dining table, he discovered that a steaming meal had been neatly set. Immediately, he sat down, and Mira appeared, smiling warmly. "Welcome home, Jaren." She greeted him softly, bringing him a bowl of warm water to wash his hands. Jaren, famished from a long day at the market, began eating immediately. The food was delicious, and he couldn't help but savor every bite. After he finished eating, he took a warm bath and fell into a deep, restful sleep. The next morning was a Sunday, and Jaren never traded on Sundays. When he woke up, he staggered into the kitchen and found Amira preparing breakfast. She wore a skimpy dress that clung to her body, accentuating her curves. Jaren's breath hitched as he watched her move gracefully. "Thanks a lot for yesterday. My name is Mira, and I remember you told me your name is Jaren," she said, turning to him with a smile. "Yes, my name is Jaren. Mira, you're a very good cook and a great housekeeper." He praised her. "Oh, thank you, Mr. Jaren." I learned a few delicacies from my mother. I was worried you may not like the food. Oh, no, no. I loved it. In fact, it's my favorite meal whenever I visit your village. And please, call me Jaren. You don't need to add, Mister. I'm not married yet. Why? You're wealthy, handsome, and kind. Any woman would die to have a man like you, she teased playfully. Really? How about you? Would you die to have a man like me? Jaren asked, smirking. Mira laughed, shaking her head, and told him to wait in the dining room so she could serve breakfast. But Jaren couldn't shake the sight of Mira's beauty from his mind. That night, as he lay in bed, he pondered deeply. He was rich and handsome, and Mira was beautiful and kind. Perhaps he should make her his wife. The next morning, Jaren asked Mira if she would like to marry him. Without hesitation, she said yes. Compared to where she had come from, Jaren's house was like heaven on earth. That night, Mira decided to serve Jaren's dinner in his bedroom. The moment Jaren saw her, he lost control over himself, and they shared a passionate night together. He discovered she was a virgin, which made him love her even more. From that moment, Jaren ensured that Mira lacked nothing, doing everything in his power to make her happy. A few months later, Amira found out that she was pregnant. She told Jaren and insisted that he must see her mother and pay her bride price so she could be formally known as his wife. Jaren loved Amira too much, so he did as she asked. Her mother gave him a list full of ridiculous items, but Jaren didn't mind. He bought them all and paid her dowry, and then he took her home as his wife. After their marriage, Amira's mother and siblings would always ask Amira for money, and she would always give them. Jaren knew of this, but he loved Amira too much, so he didn't care. Since his business was moving fine and the money was coming, Amira gave birth to a bouncing baby girl, and Jaren threw a feast to celebrate his first child. He also bought Amira a hair. When the child turned 5, Jaren threw another feast to celebrate her 5th birthday. He had left his drink on the table and went to eat himself. On his absence, one of his friends, who was envious of his achievements, poisoned his drink. Jaren trusted people too much and too easily, and he gulped down the drink. When he returned 2 weeks after his daughter's birthday, Jaren became very sick. He was admitted into the hospital and had to spend a lot of money on his treatment. His business suffered huge losses, and he had to rely on his savings to sort himself out medically. Amira was supportive at first, but then her mother began to dissuade her because Amira was no longer sending them money. As time went by, with Jaren still on the sickbed, Amira started to change gradually. She stopped seeing Jaren as often as before in the hospital, and her personality was altered. Jaren could observe her displeasure. He knew she wasn't happy, but he always encouraged her to be patient with him. 6 months into the ailment, Jaren had sold everything he had in a bid to cure the illness. He was left with nothing and was completely broke. All he had left was his house. Amira couldn't tolerate him anymore. She slowly became rude to him. She stopped being caring and compassionate. One day, Amira was on her way to the mall. She stood on the road, waiting for a commercial taxi, having sold her car and that of her husband to raise money for his treatment. A luxurious car stopped in front of her and offered to give her a ride. At first, she wanted to refuse, but then she thought about how helpless Jaren was and decided to enter the car. The man introduced himself as Ala Wasum, and Amira told him her name. When they got to the mall, Wasum followed her inside and paid for everything she bought and more. After that, they went back to the car. He told Amira all about himself. I am an importer and exporter of special stores. I fell in love with you the moment I saw you standing by the roadside. I really like you, Amira, and I want to marry you. I like you too, Wazam. Thank you for everything you bought for me. I wish I could accept your proposal, but I am married. I don't care. Tell me how much it will cost, and I will pay. I have enough money to buy you anything you want. Please think about it, my dear. Amira laughed at his boast and promised him that she would think about it. Immediately after Amira got home, she got a call from her mother asking her to send some money because one of her siblings was sick. But she had no money to send. She started to consider Wasam's proposal. After much thought, she decided to leave Jaran. She met Jaran at the hospital and told him, I don't think I can remain married to you anymore. I have needs and you cannot meet them. My love, please be patient with me. This is just a phase. It will pass. Please don't call me that anymore. I am not your love. What about our daughter? You can keep her. She's all yours. Mira stormed out of the hospital, ignoring the pleas of Jarin and her little daughter. She went ahead to meet Wasum, and they got married. Wasum threw a lavish wedding, an even bigger one than the one that Jarin did. A lot of prominent personalities were in attendance. Wasum gave Mira's mother the total cost of everything Jarin paid for Mira's dowry, and she returned it to him. You foolish and wretched man, you foolish and wretched man, here is the peanut you gave to me as dowry for my daughter. A man who knows her true worth and can afford it has come for her. Please don't ever let me set my eyes on you again. After saying this, she threw the money at him and left his house, ignoring her granddaughter as well. Mira moved in with Wasum, and indeed Wasum was 10 times wealthier than Jaran was. He spent money lavishly, unlike Jaran, who was meticulous. And Mira didn't care if Wasum's source of money was genuine or not. All she cared about was that the money kept coming. With the dowry Mira's mother returned, Jaran underwent surgery and recovered completely. He took a loan from the bank and started life afresh. Within a few months, he was able to rebuild his business and bought everything he had previously sold when he was sick. Jaran had decided not to take another wife, so he focused all his attention on his daughter and gave her all the love she needed. He made sure his daughter didn't miss her mother. Wasum and Mira had a beautiful marriage, but it didn't last long. The Institute of Financial Crimes Commission tracked down Wasum for money laundering and closed down his businesses. Mira was pregnant for him when it happened. Wasum was charged to court and sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. All his assets were confiscated and his accounts were frozen. Mira was left with nothing other than her pregnancy. She had no one to take care of her because she never saved for any rainy days. Her mother began to mock and frustrated. She blamed Mira for leaving Jaran behind and called her all sorts of names. Every day, she shamefully went back to Jaran to plead for his forgiveness. She went on her knees with her protruding stomach and begged him, but Jaran had already taken in another wife who was better, industrious and compassionate. Please forgive me, my love. I'm sorry for the way I treated you. My mother was the architect of my behavior towards you. I'm not your love anymore. I have forgiven you, but I cannot take you back into my life because I will not make the same mistake twice. Their daughter entered the house and ran to hug her father. She had grown so big and beautiful and had just returned from school. "My daughter," she said, "hold your mother. You're not my mother. You're not my mother anymore. You pushed me away, ignored, and abandoned me when I begged you to stay. I have a new mother now who loves me and truly cherishes me." Mira left Jaren's house in regret. Her mother, whom she had spent so much money on, refused to accommodate her, and her siblings equally abandoned her. She learned her lesson the hard way. Eventually, she gave birth to a bouncing baby boy and gave him to the orphanage. But the shock of what she had faced affected her mentally, so she was admitted into a psychiatric hospital where she frequently told the tale of how she threw away a precious diamond in exchange for a stone. The story of Jaren and Amira teaches a powerful lesson about gratitude, loyalty, and the consequences of greed and betrayal. Jaren, a kind and generous man, saved Amira from despair, gave her a new life, and loved her unconditionally. However, when misfortune struck, Amira allowed materialism and external influences to cloud her judgment, abandoning the man who had once been her savior. This story reminds us that loyalty is tested in difficult times. True love and commitment are not just about enjoying the good moments, but also standing by each other when hardships arise. It also shows that greed and ingratitude often lead to downfall. Amira had everything she needed with Jaren, but her pursuit of more led her to destruction. Additionally, it highlights the dangers of negative family influence. Not all advice from loved ones is good advice, and we must learn to differentiate between wisdom and selfish manipulation. Most importantly, we must value what we have before it's too late. Amira only realized Jaren's worth after losing him, but by then it was too late to undo her mistakes. Every action has consequences, and the choices we make today determine our future. Sometimes one wrong decision can change our lives forever. Thank you for watching my channel. If you enjoyed this lesson, be sure to check out more inspiring and thought-provoking videos. Stay tuned for more interesting content. And remember, value the people who truly love you before it's too late. That evening, as darkness fell over the village, Ease and his friends took their positions around Zara's house. The night air was cool, carrying the distant sounds of chirping crickets and rustling leaves. Zara felt nervous, but hopeful as she went to bed, the soft glow of her lantern flickering against the wooden walls. The night was quiet, and the village lay peaceful under the starry sky, with only the soft sounds of nature and the watchful eyes of friends guarding the secrets of the night. In this village, there was always a festival that happened every year. This annual village festival was a time of joy and celebration, a moment when all worries were set aside in favor of music, dance, and communal happiness. Villagers spent weeks preparing, weaving bright fabrics, crafting intricate masks, and preparing the most delicious meals to share. This year, the festival arrived amidst the swirl of rumors and whispers about Zara, offering her a much-needed break from the stress that had been clouding her days. As Zara stepped into the bustling village square, she felt the vibrant energy of the festival wash over her. Colorful banners fluttered in the breeze, and the air was filled with the scents of spicy grilled meats, sweet fried dough, and fresh fruits. Vendors called out cheerfully, showcasing their handmade crafts and jewelry. Musicians played lively tunes on drums and flutes, their rhythms weaving a spell over the gathering crowd. Dancers spun and leapt with boundless enthusiasm, their movements telling stories passed down through generations. Idris found Zara among the crowd and smiled broadly. Zara, come, forget your troubles for a day. Let's enjoy the festival together. Gratefully, Zara took Idris's offered hand, allowing herself to be drawn into the joy of the moment. Together, they tried different foods, laughing as they competed over who could eat the spiciest pepper without reaching for water. They watched children run playfully with streamers and homemade masks, their giggles echoing through the square. The warm glow of lanterns flickered against the buildings, casting long shadows as the evening deepened. They clapped along to the rhythm of the drummers, the beats reverberating through the ground beneath their feet. As the evening progressed, a local band took to the stage set up at the center of the square. The music shifted to a more upbeat rhythm, and Idris pulled Zara towards the dance floor. The villagers, caught up in the celebration, cheered them on. Come on, Zara, it's time to dance, he encouraged. With a shy laugh, Zara allowed herself to be swept into the dance, her feet moving to the lively beats, her worries temporarily forgotten. The dance floor was a swirl of colors and laughter, and for a few hours it seemed like the entire village was united in celebration. The elders sat nearby, watching with approving smiles, nodding along to the melodies that had been sung for generations. As they danced, Lami and Obi joined them both, offering Zara warm smiles and friendly nods. The energy in the square was contagious, lifting everyone's spirits. See? Life still holds joy, Lami shouted over the music, her eyes sparkling with fun. The festival continued into the night, with lanterns lighting up the square and stars twinkling overhead. The scent of burning incense drifted through the air, mixing with the aroma of roasted maize. For the first time in weeks, Zara felt light and carefree. The music, the company, and the festive atmosphere worked their magic, easing her heart and clearing her mind. When the night finally wound down, and the last song wound down, and the last song wound down, and the last song played, Zara felt rejuvenated. As she walked home under the starry sky, accompanied by Idris and her friends, she felt more confident and hopeful about facing whatever challenges lay ahead. The festival had not only provided her a respite, but reminded her of the support and love of her friends and the simple joys of life that no mystery could overshadow. As the festival crowd began to thin and the lanterns swayed gently in the night breeze, Zara decided to take a quiet walk around the edges of the village square to gather her thoughts and enjoy the peaceful night. The joyful noise of the festival was now a soft hum in the background, replaced by the serene sounds of the evening. Zara strolled towards a small secluded area near the village outskirts, a spot known for its beautiful view of the stars. Fireflies flickered in the distance, their tiny lights glowing like fallen stars in the grass. The moonlight cast a silvery glow, painting everything in a soft ethereal light. As she approached her favorite spot, she noticed a figure standing there, gazing up at the sky. The figure turned as she neared, and Zara stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. It was a man she recognized, but had never spoken to much Mr. Dyke, a quiet and well-respected elder, known for his wisdom and kindness. Mr. Dyke? Zara asked hesitantly, her voice barely above a whisper. Ah, Zara, he said, his voice warm and gentle. I was hoping to speak with you tonight under the stars. Zara felt a mixture of curiosity and nervousness. Me? Why did you want to see me, sir? Mr. Dyke smiled softly, stepping closer. I've heard of the troubles the gifts have caused you, and I feel it's time I explained. You see, I am the one who has been leaving you those gifts. Zara was stunned. You? But why? I knew your parents well. Mr. Dyke began, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. They were dear friends of mine. When they passed, I promised I would watch over you from a distance. I wanted to make sure you felt cared for, even if I couldn't do so openly. But the secrecy, Zara murmured, trying to process the revelation. Mr. Dyke nodded. I didn't want to cause a stir or set tongues wagging by giving you these gifts openly. Perhaps I was wrong to keep it hidden. For that I am truly sorry if I have brought you any distress. Zara felt a rush of emotion, surprise, relief, but above all, gratitude. Thank you, Mr. Dyke. I've always appreciated the gifts, even though they brought some unexpected challenges. Let's walk back together, Mr. Dyke suggested, offering his arm. If you agree, we can tell the others. It might put an end to all the gossip. As they walked back towards the lingering festival lights, Zara felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The mystery that had puzzled her and the village was finally solved, and the truth was far kinder and more touching than she could have imagined. Under the stars, with a newfound sense of peace, she embraced the warmth of the night and the kindness that surrounded her. Trusted elder by her side, Zara realized that the village was her home, filled with unseen bonds of care and memory. And now, with everything in the open, she could truly begin to move forward, free from whispers and shadows. After leaving the festival, Zara and Mr. Dyke walked together to the river that flowed gently on the outskirts of the village. The quiet bubble of the water provided a serene backdrop, perfect for the continuation of their important conversation. Moonlight dappled the river's surface, casting shimmering reflections that danced with each small ripple. They found a bench near the water's edge, a spot secluded enough to ensure privacy. The wood was worn smooth from years of use, and the gentle lapping of the river against the shore provided a calming backdrop. Zara sat, her mind still reeling from the revelations, and turned to Mr. Dyke with a mixture of curiosity and respect. Mr. Dyke, she started, her voice soft but earnest, may I ask why you chose to help me in such a secretive way? And why only now have you decided to reveal yourself? Mr. Dyke looked at the river, watching the light play on the water, before answering. The reflection of the moon shimmered on the surface, its glow dancing with the ripples. Zara, your parents were very dear to me. Your father and I were like brothers, and I promised him long ago that I would look after his family, should anything happen to him. After they were gone, I watched over you from a distance, ensuring you were never in need. He paused, his voice thick with emotion, his fingers tracing an absent pattern on the wooden bench. As for the secrecy, I worried that overt assistance might draw unwanted attention or influence upon you. I wanted you to grow strong and independent, without the burden of obligation or the weight of public scrutiny. Zara nodded, understanding the delicate balance he had tried to maintain. A night bird called out in the distance, its lonely cry adding to the depth of the moment. And the timing, she asked. The timing, Zara, was a mistake on my part. I underestimated the village's reaction, and for that I am sorry. I thought it was time to bring a little extra joy into your life, but I see now I should have approached this differently. Zara reached out, placing her hand over Mr. Dyke's, feeling the warmth of his reassurance beneath her fingers. I am grateful for your kindness and your respect for my parents' memory. Knowing this has brought me a new sense of peace. How can we address the village's concerns? Mr. Dyke smiled at her maturity and thoughtfulness, the corners of his eyes crinkling with approval. I believe the best way is to be open about it now. Tomorrow, we can go together to the village elders and explain everything. With transparency, we can hopefully dispel any lingering doubts and restore your good name. Zara felt a profound relief wash over her. The mystery that had so clouded her life was resolved, and the resolution brought not only explanations, but also a deeper connection to her past and to Mr. Dyke. They sat together a while longer, watching the river flow peacefully. The night sounds of the village carried softly in the distance, a reminder of the life that flowed around and within them. Fireflies flickered along the riverbank, their tiny lights mirroring the stars above. Zara felt fortified by the truth, ready to face whatever came next with a clear heart and the support of a newfound guardian. As they walked back to the village, the moon overhead seemed to bless their path, its light guiding them home. The next morning, as the village awoke under a clear sky, Zara prepared herself to face the village elders with Mr. Dyke. However, before they could set out, her uncle arrived at her doorstep, his expression stormy. Zara, he called out sharply as he entered her house without waiting for an invitation. His voice was laden with anger and disappointment. I heard from a neighbor that you were seen late last night, talking in secret with Mr. Dyke by the river. What is this about? Why are you meeting secretly with men at night? Have you no respect for the promises you made to find out the truth and share it? Zara, taken aback by his fierce tone, tried to calm the rising tension. The morning air was cool, but the tension in the room made it feel stifling. Uncle, please let me explain. Uncle, please let me explain. It's not what you think. Mr. Dyke is the one who has been leaving the gifts. We met last night to discuss how to tell everyone the truth. He wanted to protect me, to honor his promise to my parents. Her uncle's face twisted with a mix of emotion, shock, confusion, and a lingering sense of betrayal. His fists clenched and unclenched as he processed her words. You knew who it was and didn't tell me. I am your family, Zara. You should have trusted me to help you with this matter. Instead, you chose to deal with it in secrecy, making me look like a fool who cannot protect his own niece, he said, his voice thick with hurt. Zara reached out, trying to bridge the gap that had suddenly formed between them. I only found out yesterday, Uncle. I planned to tell you this morning, with Mr. Dyke, in front of the elders. I wanted to handle this properly and clear up any misunderstandings. Her uncle, however, was slow to accept this explanation. His jaw remained tight, his eyes still dark with unresolved feelings. I must think on this, he said stiffly, his eyes not meeting hers. I must consider whether I can still trust you, Zara. This has damaged more than you realize. With those heavy words, he turned and left, his departing footsteps echoing in the silence, leaving Zara feeling shaken and deeply upset. Alone now, Zara reflected on her uncle's reaction. She understood his feelings of betrayal, but she also knew she had acted with the best intentions. The situation was delicate, and she had hoped to resolve everything smoothly by revealing the truth with Mr. Dyke at her side. Determined to mend the rift this revelation had caused, Zara knew she needed to act quickly and transparently. She decided to go ahead with the plan to speak to the elders, hoping that their support could help restore her uncle's faith in her. As she left her home to find Mr. Dyke and face the elders together, Zara felt the weight of her uncle's words. She realized that rebuilding trust would take time, but she was ready to start that journey, no matter how difficult it might be. Zara found Mr. Dyke, and they both went to the village elder together, where Mr. Dyke narrated everything about the secret gifts as the elders listened in amusement. The fire in the village square crackled warmly as they spoke, adding an air of solemnity to the moment. After her meeting with the village elders, which went better than she had hoped, Zara knew she still had one difficult conversation ahead of her reconciling with her uncle. With a heavy heart, she made her way to his house, where the air felt thick with tension. The morning sun casting long shadows on the ground. The house was quiet, the usual hum of daily life conspicuously absent. As Zara entered, her uncle's stern gaze made her pause at the threshold. "Zara," he began without preamble, "your meeting with the elders may have cleared the air with the village, but it has not repaired the trust you've broken with me." Zara took a deep breath, steadying herself. "Uncle, I'm truly sorry. I never meant to undermine your authority or make you feel excluded. Mr. Dyke and I wanted to handle the situation delicately to avoid more rumors." Her uncle's voice hardened. "Delicacy is not an excuse for secrecy, Zara. You acted as if you were alone in this matter, as if you had no family to turn to. Therefore, I must know that I can trust you again, and that requires more than just apologies." Zara nodded, understanding the weight of his words. "What do you need from me, uncle?" "I need you to make a choice," he said, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that made her heart sink. "Either you live here under my watch, where I can be sure of your actions and your company, or you must find a new place to live, one where your actions do not reflect upon me or our family name." The ultimatum hung heavily in the room. Zara felt as if the walls were closing in on her. She cherished her independence, but she also respected her uncle and understood his fear of disgrace. "Uncle, please don't make me choose between my home and my independence," Zara pleaded, her voice trembling slightly. "I promise to be more open with you. Can we not find a way to move forward without such conditions?" Her uncle shook his head, his decision firm. "No, Zara. It is time for tough choices. If you wish to remain part of this household, you must agree to my terms. Otherwise, you must prepare to make your own way." Tears welled up in Zara's eyes as the reality of his words sank in. She knew her uncle was acting out of a sense of protection, but his method felt stifling and punitive. With a heavy heart, she realized that maintaining her independence might mean leaving the only home she had ever known. "I need some time to think about this," Zara said quietly, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside her. "Take your time," her uncle replied, his tone softening slightly. "But understand, Zara, my decision is final." As she left her uncle's house, she felt the weight of adulthood and its myriad challenges pressing upon her. The road ahead seemed daunting, but she knew she had to make a choice, not just for her comfort, but for her dignity and future. As Zara walked through the village center, the murmur of the community was palpable. Her recent conflicts and the ultimatum from her uncle had not gone unnoticed, and whispers followed her like shadows. Feeling the weight of every gaze, Zara kept her head down, her thoughts a turmoil of anxiety and uncertainty. However, amidst the whispering crowd, Idris stepped forward, his presence like a beacon. He approached Zara with a resolute expression, clearly intent on making a public statement. Idris, what are you doing? Zara whispered, apprehensive about drawing more attention. Idris smiled reassuringly and raised his voice, ensuring that everyone in the village center could hear. Fellow villagers, he began, his tone firm and commanding attention. I stand here today in full support of Zara. She has been honest and forthcoming about the gifts she received, which were meant in goodwill by Mr. Dyke, a respected elder, the crowd murmured, some nodding in agreement, while others looked doubtful. Idris continued, it's easy to spread rumors and doubt someone's character, but it takes courage to stand up and speak the truth. Zara has done just that. She deserves our respect, not our suspicion. A few villagers clapped, but others exchanged skeptical glances, whispering among themselves. The village was clearly divided. Some appreciated Zara's openness and Idris's bold support, while others held on to their reservations. Idris turned to Zara, lowering his voice so only she could hear. No matter what happens, Zara, you have friends here who believe in you and will stand by you. Zara felt a mix of gratitude and fear. Thank you, Idris. But won't this cause trouble for you? People might turn their suspicions toward you now. Idris shrugged off her concern with a confident wave of his hand. Let them look. They'll find nothing but my unwavering support for a friend. It's time we all worked on trust rather than doubt. His words bolstered Zara's spirits, giving her the strength to face the divided crowd. She addressed the villagers, her voice clearer and more confident than before. Thank you, Idris, and thank you to everyone who supports me. To those who still doubt, I hope in time you will see the truth as it is. As the gathering dispersed, the reactions varied. Some villagers approached Zara and Idris to express their support and understanding, while others left with whispers, their suspicions still intact. The divide was clear, but so was the circle of support forming around Zara, anchored by Idris's unwavering friendship. This public endorsement marked a significant moment in the village, reshaping relationships and perceptions. For Zara, it was both a challenge and a reassurance that she was not alone in her journey, no matter the choices she would have to make in the future. As the village sank into a restless night, Zara found herself packing her few belongings under the dim light of a lantern. The decision had been heart-wrenching, but the resolve in her heart was clear. She could no longer stay in the village under the terms set by her uncle. It was time for a new beginning, however daunting that might be. Idris had agreed to help her leave. He understood that for Zara to truly find peace and maybe one day return, she needed the freedom to grow beyond the confines and judgments of the village. Idris, are you sure about this? Zara asked as he quietly entered her small house, his expression serious but resolute. Yes, Zara, it's the right thing to do, he replied, helping her to secure her bundle. You need a fresh start, away from all the pressure and the stairs. We'll head to my cousin's village. It's far enough to give you space, but close enough if you ever decide to return. The plan was risky. Leaving under the cover of night meant avoiding unwanted questions or attempts to stop her, but it also meant slipping away from the only life she knew. Idris led the way, carrying a lantern to light their path through the less traveled roads of the village. Every rustle of the trees, every snap of a twig underfoot heightened Zara's anxiety, fearing discovery. They reached the outskirts of the village, where Idris had arranged for a small cart with a reliable old horse to wait. The cart was modest, covered with a simple cloth to shield them from the early morning dew. As they loaded Zara's belongings, Idris looked at her, his eyes softening. Zara, once we leave, things will change. You'll be free to build something new. Remember, no matter how far you go, you'll always have a friend in me. Zara felt a surge of gratitude mixed with sadness. Thank you, Idris, for everything. I don't know how to repay you for all this. There's no debt between friends. Idris replied, giving her a reassuring smile. Just promise me you'll take care of yourself. And that concludes the second part of Zara's story. Now, do you think Zara would come back to marry Idris? Or will she betray him by getting married to his cousin? Or will she betray him by getting married to his cousin? Or even the prince of the village she's heading to? Share your thoughts. The story of Zara teaches us a valuable lesson about trust, resilience, and the importance of standing up for the truth. Despite the challenges and rumors that surrounded her, Zara found strength in the support of true friends like Idris, who stood by her side, even when others doubted her. It reminds us that misunderstandings and secrets can cause unnecessary pain, but openness and honesty can rebuild lost trust. Life will always present difficult choices, but having courage and staying true to oneself is what truly matters. Zara's journey also highlights the importance of friendship, showing that real friends will always support and guide us through hardships. Thank you for watching my channel. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to check out more interesting and exciting videos on the channel. Stay tuned for more amazing content.